Look, I'm outside. Look, I'm outside. See how the sky? There's the moon up there. It's looking a little funky today, but we are indeed outside. And the sky's white now. Oh, there's a giant fan in the sky, too. So I know nobody's here yet, and the stream is not going to be long. But my friend who owns this place and who's renting it to us, or, well, we're not renting it, we're just staying here free of charge. Wink, wink. We had to do that because people were trying to pull shenanigans, like always. The fembots were trying to pull shenanigans. No, it was a brobot. It was a dude that was angry. I have the whole house to myself. As you can see, it's just me, the backyard, the cat, and not very much food. So I'm doing this. I'm doing a very short live stream as a little bit of a check-in with YouTube people. Whoever manages to slip through the algorithmic suppression. Signal is bad in some places. So it's just us in the house. I'm having to find more work to earn magic green papers because the situation I was in turned pretty nasty. I won't go into it, but I had to leave the situation due to somewhat moral reasons. And so I'm looking for work again. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter in this realm. Nothing that we do for dollars is going to support us as living beings, so we just have to make money somehow. Survive on the side. Does that make sense? I'm listing up some things on some sites. The cat should get a couple dollars at least. What's up, Samir? So I was playing chess on Twitch. And when I first started playing chess on Twitch, when I very first started, now to start off, my rating's good. It's titled level play, titled level quality of play. My rating's 2,300. Titled level players on all the sites start at 2,000. That's the lowest level titled players. Some of them are 1,900. And once you get up to around 2,300, you're at FIDE master / international master status. Even some GMs are that low. But it should be enough to create a bit of a draw. And I was having people watching and commenting for the first couple weeks. And then the whole thing just chopped. And it was to 1 or 2 watchers almost always, and almost no comments, almost no interaction. And that's just kind of how it's been the entire time. So it has made me trying to use Twitch as a streaming platform almost useless. But I still go on there occasionally just to see what's going on. But I was talking with my friend who's not like a truther type deal. He's aware, but I was complaining about the robots everywhere, the biobot human type creatures running around, and the fact that there aren't very many non-robot ones running around. And I was expecting him to say something about it, but he was agreeing. He was like, he named off like 3 or 4 people, and he was like, we're the only ones. I know everyone has in their own mind their percentage, and it differs depending on who you are, where you're at. But I think as a group, if we actually keep that knowledge like there, keep it as working knowledge of walking around on Earth, just working knowledge that the vast majority of what look like people running around are what Dolores Cannon would call backdrop or backfill people. or sentient or AI type productions compared to the so-called ensouled humans is what I'm talking about, of course. And it took me the longest time to not feel like I was being mean to use that term, but there's no denying it. There's literally no denying it. It's the vast majority of the people walking around are what you would call organic portals, as some people have called them, or soulless automatons, robots, zombies, all the same thing. But I think to wake up and just remind yourself, yes, this is the place I live in, and the infrastructure supports the zombies. The infrastructure is what helped turn them into zombies if they were real people at one point. If they were more true to source or their roots or God, the higher dimensions, the non simply 3D eat, sleep, poop, repeat cycle, if they were something more than that, then this whole system came in and crushed everybody. And if you're surviving, if you're a survivor of the apocalypse essentially, then you will be running around confused and you will feel not supported by this earth even. Not by this earth. The earth supports, but you will feel not supported by the societal structure whatsoever. The closer we come to the event, the more... Yeah. It's not any like laughing matter. I know that much. Like the AI is the hivemind, the virus, the whole thing. It's very it's nothing to joke about. Like, it's horrifying, and it tries to entrain your every thought and motion into this marionette type play while your life force is being sucked out. Like, that's essentially what it is. That's what it felt like to me. Other Andreas felt it before. Like, when that's trying to happen to you, it's an all-out battle not to get consumed by it. See, this is about what happened on Twitch. Is it says I have 2 watchers and there's 1 person commenting, and this is with my so-called 2300 subscribers on YouTube. It has gotten very quiet across all fronts. And I still am in contact with a few people like Samir. Omar talks to me fairly often. Who else? Joey, I hear from him occasionally. Crystal and Elena. I see that Aurora's active a lot on Facebook. Ashley Aurora also is active a lot on Facebook. And they have their crowd, but I'm not really attached to the crowd scene as much. I prefer my peace. I prefer my silence, my stillness, my 0 point. So that's generally where I reside. But I do keep an eye on what's happening in the non-zombie world, because that's my people, like that's the only people we got. So I do have to pay attention somewhat to that. I mean, I like paying attention to that. But I don't want to. I know I haven't been posting. I have not been uploading videos a lot. I don't want to like drop off the radar. I also want you guys to know that, like, hey Trixie, I want you all to know that, like, I'm good. I've been through my battles. I've been there and back on so many levels. It's not even funny to talk about. So you don't really need to worry about me per se. Being that I'm not posting a lot, I'm always around. I'm always energetically doing what I need to do, whether it be battling these invisible forces, or whether it be simply holding space and holding the energy for those that remain, right? But I'm always around. Generally speaking, I prefer meditation. So And in this realm, like the louder that you are, the more likely that you open yourself up to attacks. Somebody was saying, Ashley was saying, she wrote a post about this artist, Abranovich or whatever her name was, and this artist was doing an art shoot and having people come and do whatever they wanted with her. And Ashley was trying to like look and feel into that situation, and she posted about it, and she said she felt this woman's energy come, and she like either battled the energy or she had to alchemize a lot of it, or it was some style of attack, or it was just like lots of energy coming from this woman just from talking about her. And that's how it is. Like, if you're alive and you've survived in this situation, like that's all that's happening. The money stuff is pretend. The money stuff is really only there to keep the NPCs in line. It's like programming for them. Like money actually is the program code to where they go and what they're allowed to do throughout their day. And that's why we feel so oppressed by it, because we're not just a code bot that accepts this line of code and then runs around, do only by those options. Like we can see multiple infinite possibilities in every situation. So it makes us feel uncomfortable to be manipulated around by the monetary code. That's all it is. It's just code. In the most base level that you can understand it, the monetary system is just a code for what you're able to do, when you're able to do it, how much of it you're able to do, and so on and so forth. And of course, status and prestige attaches into that as well. But for the awake, it's mainly just an oppressive annoyance. It's not much more or less than that. There is an austere beauty to our unacknowledged sacrifice. It's not unacknowledged. I think people know. Beings on the outside of this realm understand. And like from the conversations I had with Lauda when I hung out with her for those 3 days, it was, and I concurred on an energetic level. This is what she said. This is like almost verbatim. She said, and she's talking about outside of the realm, like when a team was being put together to come in here and try and help with the situation. She's like, most people or beings or whatever on the outside, they heard of the possibility and they just simply said no. They're like, fuck that. There's no way I would ever go there for any amount of anything ever. Not even a chance. Just like it's, and this is beings talking from the more enlightened perspective than whatever we get dumbed down to when we get popped into this place. Still refusing. Like, this is people who've been through the battles. They remember their past incarnations or their past whatevers, and they still look at the possibility of coming into this realm and they flat out refuse it. That was what she imparted to me, and it makes sense. Like, if you've seen a little bit of it, like Samir obviously knows he's got the TI stuff going on a much higher level than I do, for instance. And TI stuff is like, that's just a piece of it. It's not the whole story. It's a part of the suppression and the oppression, but it's not a fun thing on any level. And if you're not being actively targeted with energy weapons or with even, mind-to-mind attacks, psychic attacks happen as well. If you're not being targeted via those things, then the whole system itself is targeting you, because the whole system itself does that. It's designed as an energetic prison for multidimensional beings, as far as I understand. And none of this is to say that I'm terribly worried about it, because part of like surviving here is realizing back to your high self, like your highest whatever it is that you are. And that means you have considered and thought about every single possibility that exists, including and up to being some sort of a god creature, including down to being some sort of Satan creature. You explore mentally all the possibilities, and you accept that you probably share a bit in all of them, and It's just what it is. Like that's the first thing you have to do once you look past the straw man silly like thing that they give you at birth. Like once you look past that, it's the first thing you gotta do is you look past the straw man and you look into what are the actual potentialities here. Or if you're a kitty, you don't bother about potentialities. You just find laps and you sit. Have you all been? I know these have been a rough couple of weeks, rough couple of months. It's been a rough 2 years for me. It's just like once I pulled myself out from the initial layer of the matrix, then it was like it just snowballed. Hey, Michelle. Message retracted. I don't know how you're the first like YouTube has been suppressing my channel for I don't know, since ever the AI figured out that I'm not AI or that I'm not part of the hive mind. But 3 of my mom's friends died in the last 2 weeks, as well as my car being totaled and my dad taken to the hospital. Wow. Sorry to hear that, Samir. Yeah, I think Danny, the unfuckers lady, is she the one that does the atmospheric tests and prognosis and all of the geomagnetic measurements and whatnot? If it's her or whoever it is, they were saying like it's been insane. She's been it's been insane forever and ever. Like anyway, but apparently the geomagnetics from outside the realm are, and the sun is doing weird things like it's not doing the normal amount of solar activity, so other energy is coming in that's not being able to be attributed to the sun apparently. And I know for me personally, like running around here in this place, it's it's like being alone essentially. You're essentially by yourself. You're like, here I am, and most of the other people running around are automatons, like actual. I speak in sarcasm and in insinuation, etc., hinting so much that I can't. It's hard for me to say something like blurt it out and mean it, because there's always so much nuance attached to the language. But when I say like most of them are just automatons, like this, just actually what it is. They actually are. They can't have the kind of conversation that we understand, and they they don't exist to me for the most part. They're like what Dolores would have said. They're background. They're backfill, and they're all running some sort of crazy code, some sort of crazy script. Mostly a boring one. Like mostly they just run around in circles in their vehicles and go home and watch the TV thing. For the most part, nothing interesting is happening, but all the interesting stuff is happening energetically, and it's not reported on any mainstream news. So any of the awake people that still have not dropped all of the religious programming are not privy to most of what's happening. And even on the highest levels, or the so-called highest levels, like what Trump is up to, he's doing things energetically. Seems like he's doing some things, but he has to speak in code, obviously, because that's what the hive understands. You can't just go out there and start saying this stuff on mainstream media because you know won't work. And even the idea, like we need to reframe our idea of what apocalypse means, because a realm of hive people rioting or like having having an apocalypse versus a million reels having like a freak out session, they're going to look completely different. They're not going to look anything the same. So we have to reframe our idea even of what it would look like if this apocalypse were to manifest on the visual plane, which I don't even think it's going to. It seems like mainly everything is happening subtly, energetically, and through the more blatant like suppression and quieting of any voices trying to share what's actually happening to them personally. That's mainly what's going on, but it's still not very visible. It's still like the visible world, the one you see out there, nothing goes on out there. I don't ever even see people getting in fights. I don't see people arguing. I don't see conversations happening. I see like in and out of stores, in and out of the car, in and out of the front door, and likely the TV is occupying a good 5 to 6 hours of everybody's time when they're home. Hey, Rebecca. Welcome. The NPCs' lives are quotations and their passions and wisdom informed by cultural tropes and dogma. And like, we're coming up on 2020. You have to have been literally hiding your head in the sand if you haven't felt and just heard everyone saying, 2020 this, 2020 that. And that's on us. We're already there. It's 2 months away. It's less than 2 months away. We're in October, right? November, December. It's a little over 3 months away. And whether it's going to mean something or not, what's up, Tim? Yep, I'm doing all right. Just trying to stay afloat financially, which has been very difficult recently for both of us. Trying to find work that is not totally soul sucking, or even find work in general. Like I was having trouble landing like minimum wage bullshit. And then my friend hired me on to do construction with him, but then he turned out to be what he was, and I had to leave that situation because it was abusive to me, and I won't tolerate that anymore. So it is what it is. Most of what is going on is just has nothing to do with, and I mean on the knowledge level, on the cerebral level, if you deduce out what is happening in any given situation as far as businesses are concerned, it has nothing to do with like what we would be doing as real humans if we had say in the matter. It has nothing to do with it. If you actually look into it and you say like this product does this product does this product does this, and try to attach actual logic to what's going on with that product, for the most part, as genuine organic humans, we don't need any products, like any. And we certainly don't need to replace them every year. We don't need to replace stuff every 3 years. We don't need this giant orgasmic, give back and forth of money. We don't need this fake currency flow. We don't need any of it. And it has completely gotten too big for its britches. I remember back when China was doing dumb shit like building an entire fucking city that nobody could afford to live in just because they had government bonds or they had government surplus funds that were dedicated toward construction. What's up, Kim? How are you doing? You know, Australia? I think I saw something somewhere. But just the level of idiocy as far as the money logic, because money actually represents logics. It represents logic. And if you have flipped the system upside down and your money logics are all backwards and they're all here to harm humans, organic humans, rather than help them, then you're literally betraying yourself by participating in it at all. At all. And most of us have been away from the true source of our being, which is the the birds and the bees and the trees and the flowers and the mountains and the silence of the woods and all of that stuff. That's most of anyone who's aware and awake and alive. That's your home. But if you've been sitting in the city for such a long time, if you've been sitting in the fake metal forest for too long, then your senses are all dumbed down as well. Mine are too. Like, I'm not my mental capacity is quite sharp, but as far as me being able to feel connection to the earth itself, to feel an adequate purpose for me being here, even though I know on the subtler levels why exactly I'm here, as far as like the monkey mind understanding what's going on here, it's not. You have to kind of make up reasons for it. But largely, from what I've understood, is we were sent in as decoys for this beast mind, AI, whatever the virus was. The reals that were sent in here were as decoys because it took over everything from the inside out, and it was completely impossible to detect. And it's on a microbiological level. It's on a subatomic level, possibly. I don't know how deep the fuckery goes inside of the subatomics, but I know it does go pretty deep. And once something gets small enough, then we can't detect it with sight or measurement or machine. So if this ripple happens throughout a dimension, and if you take anything Og says to be true, or partially true, or even a fraction true, he says at some point the onlookers for this realm, they just, by all appearances, it looked exactly the same, but there were no more soul signatures, or there were no more what do you call it? There was no more life. It was just the automation had completely taken over for the most part, and almost everybody got evicted from the house, which is the body. And so you have, by appearances, things look like they're going along, but it's just what do you call it? It's just it's a they live episode mainly. And then you think, well, let's logically continue that line of thought. At some point, like, if the thing took over everybody and the thing is not sentient, then in the big scheme, there's literally no purpose to it whatsoever. And the consciousness, being that it can't handle that sort of bullying, like the organic raw consciousness cannot handle that sort of bullying that the AI entrainment tries to give, it must either resist it and defeat it, make it to where it can't be hooked anymore, right? Which, if you're listening to me, then likely you are on that level. If you're here at all, you've battled it in some form, whether you know it or not. It's either that, or we have to leave, like our essence has to leave, because it's too painful, it's too traumatizing, it's too everything. Like, it's just not good. So, if you're here, kudos to you. I don't really have a lot of advice, but hey, Lee, what's up? The program deconstructs around us so that we can notice it and stay awake. Are you saying this is the worst case scenario, or this isn't? People are becoming too aware for the Federal Reserve debt-based wizardry to continue for much longer. I'm mad broke doing minimum wage work for the past 2 months. Yeah. And, the U.S. is essentially a third world country now. It's like you just wake up to rhetoric, and then you see, oh, there's lots of rah going on, and it just didn't have anything to do with the situation as it actually stood. It can't get any worse without it destroying itself very quickly. I don't know how much worse it could get, because, again, if most of the realm was populated with NPCs, then it's not getting bad for them because there isn't anyone inside for it to be getting bad for. There's not an internal like living. I feel this, like, and again, this is the diciest possible like thought region to go into because it can be turned into a gigantic flame war in 2 seconds flat. But even like it's to the level where they're not even defending themselves. Like NPCs don't defend themselves. They don't understand what you're saying. But anybody, a real could use that information to battle. They could claim NPC when they're not, or they could claim real when they're not. And of course, that would go downhill really quickly. I would love to see a conversation between you and Aurora. Those are always fantastic. Yeah, I stopped being active mainly because I kind of like, and I've said this before, but I felt like I had said everything. I've said a lot on this channel. I've expounded on quite a few different areas, and I've made thousands of videos. So for the most part, I felt like I had said my piece for the most part, trying to hold the peace while saying my piece. And I just, this is not like me not being super active. See, like I even have I have a bald spot on my chin. Like someone started a forest fire on my chin. I had the beard out, and then I noticed, I was like, Andrew, there's like a hole in my chin. And there is. See right here? When it's out, then you really notice it. That is probably just there because this place is poisonous. But how do you believe? The death force of automation seems to have taken this more seriously than God has. Yeah, and also the suppression, once the suppression hit, and I was like, oh, this is just being fully suppressed for whatever reason by whoever, however, then I kind of stopped caring or having too much energy to output if it didn't look like it was reaching very many people. Like my channel stopped at 2,300 and has stayed around there forever. And it's fine. Like I didn't go into it thinking it was going to become something or thinking I was going to become something, but through the process I learned a shit ton about this place. I remember back before all this happened, back before any of this happened, like I was scared to like say the notion, like, where are we? Like there was a part of me that bucked back at the possibility of asking someone that. I remember like driving down the street, and I would be feeling so crappy that I just wanted to like hop out, talk to the nearest person and say, where are we? Like, what planet are we on? When are we? Like how they say in Travelers, when are you from? Like, what is going on here? And I was always too scared to do it. And then here on the channel, I essentially did that, and then I talked about everything else my mind could possibly conceive of, because obviously whatever is being given here has nothing to do with anything. And then I found, to my surprise, that there isn't that much blowback from simply saying, like, where are we? Like, what? This isn't Earth anymore. This is something different. Are we in a simulation? Do we go back in time? Are we fighting demons? Are we in hell? Are we wherever, right? Like, I asked all those questions. And like the world, the NPC world has nothing to say to that other than gaslighting or silence. Like gaslighting or silence was the only result I had. And the ones that I consider real, even my own family, those that I consider somewhat aware in my own family, still would just be like, act like I was crazy, which is the completely normal thing. Like that's the whole CIA thing in the first place, was invent schizophrenia to explain away symptoms of patients after they've been MK Ultra tortured for decades. Very simple. Like all this stuff is such simple logic. You simply look into it for a minute, and then you see, oh, this is happening, and it's very simple. And that's also partially why I stopped outputting very much, because number one, I had said everything, and number two, the logic of what's happening here is not complicated at all. It's very simple. There aren't very many living humans here. It's mainly some hivemind or AI thing or some virus thing, and they don't like human consciousness. Like we don't get along very well. Like there's not a big affinity either direction. So we're like some sort of alien species to them, and they're whatever they are to us. They're not. There's no like medium ground with which we can discuss the differences. The gap is too big. So to me, like that's the basis of what's happening. Thank you. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. I think raw consciousness. It was funny, like I get my hopes up in making money doing, anything that's not slave labor or whatever. And once I monetized this channel, I was like, oh, I can make some money here. I see the stats. No, it's good. Thank you, Lee. I was like, I see the stats. I see the potential. I have a decent amount of pull here, maybe something will happen. And it did start happening. And I did have, for the first like couple months that I had monetized the channel, it was doing like $50 a month. That's literally where it was at. And then it's like the suppression algorithms immediately kicked in once they were like, because I feel like we are managed. Like I know it. I don't need to say I feel it. Like the real ones are economically managed by either by the hive mind or by Satan's minions or whoever. Behind the scenes, they tinker with your bank account, or they tinker with your opportunities as you're literally physically walking through the realm, banging on doors and saying, hey, can I have a job, or whatever it may be. And they allow you to have just enough to survive and not a cent more. And that's about what it is. That's how my entire life has been. I've never had like savings. I've had a few toys here and there, but mainly the awakened life. Like once you sort of become awakened and you talk out about these things, then all the suppression stuff starts happening. And partially it's because you can't make too much noise and draw too much attention to yourself. Because then we'll have a bunch of wars we'll have to fight, and it's not good. So that's partially why we're all spread out here, is for game purposes. If you strictly think of it as a game, and it's kind of silly to think of it as a game because according to some people's knowledge and memory, we've been here for millions of years trying to solve this problem or win the game or simply live, like maybe that's what we call living when we're still just thinking we're just like 3D avatar beings. However you want to frame it, there's the possibility that we've been doing this for many, many cycles. And if you look at the larger perspective, game theory, and you could say any number of things. You could say, like when the simulation theory first came out, the logic behind that, and it really becomes true the first time that your mind can accept the logic. The logic said, if you look at from the beginning of time till the end of time, or till the event or whatever, and you see when the first video game has been created on a screen, and you see, oh, that mimics real life. That mimics, me walking around, kind of like it looks like it. That's what a picture is. It mimics the human face on a flat piece of paper. When that very first mimicry happened, when the human first looked into the water and they saw their face rippling, right? At that very moment, if they had had the thought, oh, replication exists, like copycat stuff exists. If the person was smart enough, they could at that moment realize what this hypothesis says, which says, you know, in any given place that you find yourself, in any world, in any realm, in any time, the chances that you're in a simulation is like 99.9999999 off, however far, to 0.0000 equivalent levels of zeros, 1. Because there can only be one original reality, and if in that original reality a fake a video game that you can port yourself into and forget your original self in the original reality, if that becomes possible once, only once is necessary, then it will start replicating itself out, and you have the fractal, nearly infinite fractal repetition cycle. Because then you have the Rick and Morty thing where they keep whatever you call it, incepting, right? They incepted to like 5 or 6 levels in Inception, and in Rick and Morty, I think he went down 5 or 6 levels, looking at all the guys inside of the batteries, inside of the batteries, inside of the batteries. And so then you can imagine, theoretically speaking, and just imagining large numbers, the probability that if you are aware inside of a body or inside of a somewhat living thing, then you must very high chances that you're not in the original, being that there's only one original and there's nearly infinite copies, kind of sort of thing. And you can start your reverse engineering thought process to who you are and where you could possibly be off of that one initial probe. Only requires one probe, one thought. What else? How's everybody doing? What's happening in your guys' lives? Have I been remembering my dreams? From Kim. I not a lot, but if I wake up and I consciously try to remember them, then I do. We've both been having kind of some crazy dreams. Although I can say that for the most part, my shit has quieted down. When I was younger, I was always having... Hey, Berserker. What's scro? I don't know what that means. I was always having night terrors, and I'd wake up running down the street and all kinds of shit. I could never sleep. And now, like, I've meditated myself to staying in the 0 point, like always, because I'm like the guy on Travelers, like what's the guy's name? The oldest one there? Like like he was one of the first ones. He's not 001, but he's one of the first ones. That's how I feel. Like, I feel ancient. I feel like I've been doing this shit for way too long. What's his name? Philip? Nah, that's the historian, right? Philip is the historian? I forget his name. There's Marcy and David. Philip, I think, is the historian. Who's the guy, like the young kid, the football player? I'm telling the characters in my dream that I'm dreaming and proving the falsehood of the construct. Are they listening to you? Travelers is really good. Like, it started off, it just felt like a show. And then it kept going until I was like, oh, this is just this realm on some level. And not only that, whoever made that show there are some of the people who are acting on that show are reals, and probably whoever made it. It's not an NPC show. And being as such, it's actually nourishment to watch it, and it's not just soul-sucking advertisement bullshit. Trevor. That's his name, Trevor. He had some illness at the end that caused him just to like stop, freeze. Some myofascial something or other that they called it. Some brain problem. And he had an agreement with the director, which is the AI that's trying to save the world. He had an agreement with the director that he was going to allow himself to be replaced with, and his host body would be able to be used by some other person from the future. But then they figured out a fix for him that would fix the brain problems. Somehow the problem was contained within his soul signature. It wasn't something that was just the body itself. It was something about his own self-energetics that he carried with him from vessel to vessel. Who else is here? I see 14 people and there's only been like 3 people commenting. Maybe 5. Who else is here? I'm curious. Who is here? New Yoda, welcome. Bots? Maybe. I don't know. They probably saw the title and they're like, oh, there's where we should be. The Joker movie. I don't know. There's probably that movie would be containing truth drops, as Matt likes to call them. Hey, Marcus. What's up, buddy? Harold, welcome. It is crazy when the organic portals used to go blank at topics we talked about 3 years ago now are trying to incrementally sell those narratives back to us. August getting a major backlash from the ladies. Why? What did he do? He doesn't even make videos anymore. How's he getting backlash? All he does is tweet. He tweets his piece on a daily basis. Yeah, probably, but at the same time, sugar mamas are only sugar mamas because they're agreeing to be as such. Every story has 2 sides to it. 2 or 10 or 15. His ex-girls are trying to defame him. Are they like talking shit? I feel like he's had enough people talking shit on him from the get-go. I mean, Steven was talking shit on him before it even progressed to what it is now. Somehow Steven felt everything coming. It's kind of entertaining. But like, I still feel like there's a more practical method for people who wish to, do something other than nothing. There has to be a practical method for achieving that. And social media, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, like, I want to live on like an organic, sustainable, like organic farm. That's where I want to live. I want to live in the mountains. I want to be growing my own shit. I want to not be connected into the internet 24/7. I don't want to have, living beings around me. That's essentially what would make me somewhat content here. I think. Maybe not. Maybe you guys would annoy the fuck out of me too. I have no idea. I really don't know, but it's not really feasible at the moment because money. My skateboard is working again. You guys want to see that? I can't show you me riding it because the internet's going to cut out, but this is my very expensive skateboard, which I should have not purchased, but that was bad with Kim, the other Kim, baby mama Kim. And this was, one of these was seizing up, and I took it to my brother's house. We pulled it apart. This is 22 miles an hour, and it gets 0 to 22 in like 3 seconds. So it's actually like it's pretty powerful. Where's the remote? Oh, right in front of my face, of course. And it has a range of about 7 miles, which it has somehow retained. So I'm maybe going to sell this at the moment until I find some more shitty minimum wage work to survive on. So you have the remote in your hand, and you have the skateboard. Pull the trigger. And it has a forward and a reverse. And it even has smart charging capabilities, so like a Prius. If you're going down a hill, it uses the resistance to actually build a charge in the battery. That's how I revived the battery when it had been sitting around for a few years. So if anybody wants to buy an expensive ass electric skateboard, for a few $100s, let me know. And also selling Droney, possibly. Droney's broken. Selling my old broken piece of shit iPhone. I don't want to go into selling my valuable things like a computer. That's actually worth something to me. But toys here, I'm gonna put them up on the auctions and see if I can get some money for them while I find work. But it does feel good to be free for the moment, for the time being. Cutting out just talking about your board. Steven definitely does talk to some of those ladies. Do you still watch Matt? I don't really still watch Matt. Sometimes, for old time's sake, I go and listen to him a little bit. If Og was a magician, that was the most fun conceptual spellcasting discovery journey of all time. This is the only thing I'm on, and yes, I'm going to get rid of my phone when we move. Cool border. How much? I paid $1,600 for it a few years ago, probably 2 years ago. Still works fine. I just went 7 miles yesterday. I'd probably try to get $500 for it off the bat. But, I don't know. Anyone in California want to buy this for $500? They're still $1,700, like the top level, and this is the dual motor model. They have a single motor model. I got the most expensive one, essentially. No? You don't want it? Where are you living, Kim? You're still not in San Diego, right? What'd you say, like Turlock or something? Los Baños? Nah. Tulare. I had the T part right. Yeah. Are you making good money? Are you like, you're not doing minimum wage stuff? I suppose if you're in the medical field, you should be making reasonable money at least. I'm in Australia. I've never seen one here. So you guys want to show with Aurora? Good money, long hours. That's worth it. When I was doing the construction work with my used to be buddy, it was long hours. We were working 11, 12 hours a day, but it was $10 an hour under the table. So I was barely able to pay the things I needed to pay and eat and basically not go broke. Sell anything, sell everything, move to Australia. Yeah. That's where Kavasilis lives. My oldest brother went and visited him recently. Or he went to one of those events that he holds. But yeah, it's been pretty quiet lately. What else? I'm down to live anywhere but Fresno. Andrea has a new painting that she's working on. She hasn't been painting a lot while she's been worrying about money with me, but this is it. I see a mushroom, an old bent over tree, and a river. In the making. Anyway, I think I'm probably going to mosey along pretty soon here. Alice Springs. How long have you been in Australia? Thank you, Aphrodite. Go do some good in the realm. Used to be buddy? What do you mean you used to be buddy? Oh, I mean he's a handful and like passive aggressive, narcissistic tendencies, dangerous behaviors, flip floppy mindset. Wanted me to go all in with his flip floppy mindset, and I did it the best that I could for a month and a half, and it was good to be able to make that money. But there were some situations that were actually dangerous that I should not have allowed myself to be getting into, and it's just I had to remove myself from it. So I'm once again free for however long I'm free till I get sucked into something else. And oh yeah, Aurora. I can do a show with Aurora because like I have the whole entire house to myself now, essentially. Andrea is leaving in 2 days. Today's Tuesday, right? She's going to visit her family on the East Coast, and the house is pretty much empty as it is. My brother just apparently stopped living here. He just disappeared off the face of the realm, and the guy who owns it, my buddy, he's working in Indianapolis or something. So he's across the country doing that. And then the other guy that lives here, the other roommate, is always working and he's barely over here. So it's essentially me and the cat while I'm actually home. So that's a long-winded way of saying that, yes, I can. I can do a show with Aurora. Maybe sometime this week, maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. I'll reach out and see if she wants to do one tomorrow. We probably won't be getting any more from Lauda. I haven't heard from her in a while. My last text she did not respond back to, and she's also back to talking with and doing shows with George, which means she allowed that energy back into her life, which I don't know if that's necessarily a great thing. Nothing against him, but I don't know if they're a great energetic match for each other. So probably no more Lada shows for the time being, but I can do an Aurora one tomorrow if she wants to. So that's about an hour. Jackson's good. I'm gonna see him today. I'm seeing him in about an hour or two. So he's good. I rode him around on this thing when I was a kid. When he was a kid, not when I was a kid. I would sit him on there when he was like 1 year old, and I would really slowly just roll it, so he would just be like carried around by the skateboard. And he remembers it, so he's going to be excited to know that. No, the construction work wasn't dangerous. I'm talking about the type of dynamics that were going on energetically. It was not good situations. I don't want to talk about it on here because I don't like talking about drama. I don't like airing dirty laundry. But needless to say, I had to remove myself, and I am looking. So if all y'all want to help send some good, help Gary find money, energy, then I would appreciate that. Otherwise, I'm going to take off. Yeah, it's a big house. Thanks for showing up, people. Keep your collective chins up, and till next time. All right. How do we do this? Peace.